I'm going to use this. This is our current list of membership. We'll use a quick roll call. So when I call your name, if you could unmute yourself and say that you're present, that way we'll know people are here or not. David Webster.
I'm present.
Christina Dressler. Diane Berry. Linda Duncan. Brandon Rutherford.
Yeah, I'm here.
Julia Fisher.
Here.
Rochelle Hamilton.
I'm here.
Thank you. Larry Dotson.
Here.
Joanna Friels is here with us in person. Carl Whipland.
Present.
And Brenda Rose.
Here.
Thank you. We are short 2 people that we're working on filling those positions. We have 2 at-large vacancies right now. So we are we're excited that you're with us today. Kind of a short meeting agenda today because I want to talk to you about something that we're kind of really excited about. We hope you'll be as excited as we are and that you'll give us permission to go forward with this idea. But with us in the room right now is Dr. Glass, and I wanted him to say hello to you all and give any updates that he has, and then we'll move into conversation about membership and meeting cadence and that sort of thing. So
thanks, David.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody here and that's online with us. I think what's on everyone's mind today is processing through the election last night and what that means. There were a number of important races at the federal, state, and local level that were, some were determined, some will be waiting maybe days or weeks to find out what happened. I'll start with the national level outlook and what that means from an educational perspective. And I'll just relate to you what implications I think it's going to have for education policy and then education in our state in Kentucky. So I won't pontificate on how I feel or won't ask you how you feel about any of the races. We've all got our different political angles and perspectives and things that we are happy about or wish it had turned out differently. But I think just from the perspective of all of us here focusing on education in the state, what does this election mean from that perspective? It appears likely that the Republicans will take control of the House of Representatives. And the Senate is still a bit of a toss-up. And so what that will mean is a change in committee chairmanship in the House. And if we end up with the races falling out on the Senate side the way that they appear right now, we're likely looking at a special election in Georgia in December to decide the control of the U.S. Senate, much like we did 2 years ago. Georgia again came down to a runoff election. In that state, you have to have a pure majority, 50% plus 1 vote to win the election. It doesn't appear that either Senator Warnock or the challenger, Herschel Walker, will achieve that 50%, although there's still votes being counted, so we'll see how it turns out. If that's true, then Georgia will be up for a special election that will ultimately determine who controls the Senate. If the Senate turns for Republicans, the ranking member of that committee after retirement will be our own Rand Paul, who won by a commanding margin here in Kentucky last night. So we're not sure that will come to pass or not, certainly given Senator Paul's long tenure in the Senate. He may be assigned to another committee chairmanship role, but he is next in line to be the chairperson of the Health, Education, Labor, and Relations Committee, which will be exciting. Senator Paul is in that role. If it turns out that the Democrats maintain that 50 seat plus the Vice President Kamala Harris being the deciding vote, which would continue control of the Senate, then we're likely to continue with Patty Murray being chair of the Health Committee. From a federal policy standpoint, all of these configurations are likely to be not a lot of change from a federal perspective. So there are a number of big and important federal laws that are up for reauthorization, have been for several years. That include the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. Both of those are major federal laws that have been up for reauthorization for several years. They're not likely to get considered again when margins are this close and parties don't seem to be able to agree on which way is up or what time of day it is. It's just not likely that they're going to tackle something as important and as politically hefty as taking on the authorization of those things. So I don't expect a lot of change however it turns out these federal elections. Shifting to the state election, we did see more Republicans get elected in state House and Senate races here in Kentucky. So those the Republicans added to their supermajority. I saw some information that there are no Democrats left representing a central time zone in Kentucky, which would be quite a change from 10, 15 years ago. Democrats, and for many years before that, had dominated the state house, state races. So this is quite a change. There are several complex reasons for that. One of them might be that the state has continuously drifted more to the right ideologically and more toward the Republican Party over time, and that is reflected in the in the turnout and in the election of more Republicans. Another thing that's put forth is that the Republicans had full control of the redistricting process after the census last year, and they have created a system where they can engineer out Democrats. I won't weigh in on which one of those factors is playing out in the election results we see, but nevertheless, we will see even fewer Democrats in the House and in the Senate. It really, from a material standpoint, doesn't matter much. The Republicans had such a supermajority before the election that they could run just about anything through any committee and override the governor's veto for that. So I don't think it makes a lot of difference. The voters, I think, did send some interesting messages to the legislature at the same time. While they gave the Republican Party an even greater supermajority in the legislature, they said no to the legislature on a couple of important constitutional questions. The first being Amendment 1, which would allow the legislature to call itself into legislative session for reasons that it determined, for length of time that it determined, rather than being called into session outside of when they're allowed to in their long and short sessions in the Constitution by the governor, which is currently the case. That appears to be headed toward defeat. So here in Franklin County, voters were most overwhelming about saying no. They did not want the legislature here in town, whatever they wanted. So you can infer from that whatever you want about how people in Frankfort feel about the legislators being in town. But it appears like it's headed toward defeat. So no on the legislature being able to call itself into session. And then Amendment 2, which would have put into the state constitution a protection around, would have made it clear that the state constitution does not afford protection to an abortion in Kentucky. So lots of political, religious values-based decisions that go into that. It broke heavily around urban and rural parts of Kentucky, very polarizing issue. Of course, if we step back from the issue of abortion and think about what messages that send to the legislature, well, to me, is another statement that this was something that the people in Kentucky didn't want legislators determining. So I think mixed messages from the voters to the legislature. One, they did give the Republicans more seats in the legislature, but they did not allow them to meet anytime they wanted, and they limited the legislature, seemingly limited the legislature's ability to further legislate, regulate on the matter of abortion. They wanted that to be solved in the courts, and there are court cases around that. So I'm not an expert on any of those, but that's my opinion of what happened in the state races. A couple of interesting local races, and I'd be interested to hear from all of you just to report out on if there were school board races in your community and what happened in some of those. I know some of you may have very passionate opinions about those. Some of you may have been up for election, so congratulations if you won. Condolences if you didn't. But to hear from you some of your perspectives. One of the races that I was paying some attention to was the Louisville race. Of course, it was put forth as sort of an ideological race of a group of conservatives that sought to take over the school board and really sort of punish the existing school board administration over COVID and other sort of social, cultural issues that largely seems to have been rejected by the voters. The Louisville incumbents all won by healthy margins there. But I'd be interested in just in hearing from any of you updates from your communities or news about how things are going just post-election in your community. If you recovered sufficiently from election night that you're able to talk about that without crying or profane words. So we'll stop and see if anybody's got any.
And if you all would, up at the top of your screen, you see the little smiley face with somebody's already done it, but you have a button there with the hand. You can click on it and it says reactions. And if you click on that reactions button, there's a hand right below it.
Yeah. So we got Brandon up first.
Hello, sir. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you.
So actually yesterday I was up for re-election. I'm currently the board chair for Madison County. So and one of the other board members was up for election. She was unopposed, but I did have an opponent, which was a former teacher in the county. And I did succeed in my re-election. So everything was pretty much the same. So going forward, Madison County is pretty much the status quo again for at least the next 2 years. So we're pretty happy and satisfied with that.
Thank you, Brandon. Looks like we've got Rose and Julia too.
Yeah, Brenda, and then Julia. You're muted, Brenda.
Not yet. Still muted.
Still muted.
There
you
you
go.
Now I
Can
can
you-
hear you.
Okay. On my board race, I did have one filed to run against me, but then he withdrew from the race before the election, so I didn't have an opponent. But Corbin Independent Schools, which is right next to Whitley County, they did have a board race. They were an independent school system, so it was school-wide or city-wide. But they have a newcomer coming, and their board chair was defeated. So they have a newcomer who's never been a board member before. So that was a little different for this area. The board chair had been 16 years there as a board member and was defeated. So I just thought I'd share that.
All right. Thank you, Brenda. And Julia.
Sure, it's fine to call me Julie. Julia is my formal name. So I'm from Bellevue Independent, and I was not up this time. I'm up in 2 years. We had our three, it's a 3 and 2, so our three incumbents were on the ballot. And also we had one former board member who lost election, I think, in 2020. And he ran again, but he was defeated. So our 3 incumbents are back.
Thank you. Thanks for that update. Anyone else? Yes, right here in the room with us.
I was up for re-election and I got re-elected. Andrew Klein was also, but he did not have an opponent. I was I'm the only one that everybody ever wants. But I won in that way.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you must be relieved.
Uh,
Must be relieved.
Oh, yeah, I am relieved.
David?
Yes, we had 3 incumbents, including myself, to run, and we all ran unopposed. I've got sinus infection, so I can't really talk. But we are all back again, and I've been on the board for 16 years and been chair for 14 of the 16 years. I'm looking forward to another 4 years on the Simpson County Board.
Thank you, David.
This is Larry.
Any other updates? Go ahead, Larry.
Oldham County, we had 3 people running. Each of them had 3 people running against them. And we lost 2 of our incumbents.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
And
big
there's,
changes in Oldham County.
yeah, there's a group out there called Oldham Raising Voices. And their goal is, if you're in, to get you out. But we did get 1 incumbent back in, so that helped.
Okay. Well, Larry, brush up on your Robert's Rules of Order. Are you the board chair in Oldham County, Larry?
I'm vice chair. Believe me, I'm refreshing up.
All right. Thank you, Larry. And Diane? Oh,
You're muted.
I still muted
Diane, you're still muted.
Okay, now?
There you go. There you go.
Okay. Diane Berry from Nelson County. We had 2, we had 1 incumbent that decided not to run. We had 1 incumbent that got defeated. So I have back, I'm vice chair. I will step up to chair next year. So we have 1 new person, totally new, and then we have 1 that was a previous board member that was asked to step down because he drives a forklift for the state. I mean, for the county road department. So he was asked to leave a couple, 3-4 years ago. So now we've got 4 out of 5 will be, has served previously. So that's a good thing too.
Michelle?
All right.
Yeah.
I'm from Breathitt County, and we had 1 vacancy. There was 2 people running for that seat, so that winner will be new, of course. And then we had 2 that's been on the board for quite a while, and they had no opponents, so they will be the same. So we just have 1 person, 1 new person coming board.
Great. Thank you, Rochelle. All right. I think we've covered everybody. Thanks for the updates just from board races, your perspective. Yeah, Julie, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I made a mistake about the person who was running. It was actually 2018. I just want to make sure I was clear on that.
Well, we'll have to see how these races unfold over the ones that are still very close and still being counted, how they unfold over this next a few days and maybe a few weeks. And if this race in Georgia ends up not yielding a clear majority winner, then we'll be in that situation again, watching Georgia to see that Senate race will be between Senator Warnock and Herschel Walker to see who ultimately represents Georgia and then who possibly ultimately controls the U.S. Senate the next few years. So with that, I'll turn things back over to David to run us through the rest of the agenda. Thanks everybody for your updates.
Thank you, Dr. Glass. As we said, this is going to be a kind of abbreviated meeting, but an important one because as I sent, and I'm going to share my screen again, we have had some conversations. This kind of was something that came up in a conversation I was having with Carrie Schelling at KSBA. And because we've been concerned here, our staff that kind of staffs this council has been concerned about attendance and the fact that and many of you have shared these concerns with me in the past about getting enough people to have a quorum in person. And so Carrie and I were talking and we came up with this idea and we wanted to run it by you and get your opinions and then sort of take a vote on it now that we're all together. And that is a notion of thinking about our meeting cadence and where our meetings occur differently. So I'm going to put this up on the screen so you all can see it. We're going to start with the meeting cadence first, and I'm going to come back to needing the membership of the council, because I don't think that's as big a conversation as this first part is. But Carrie said, you know, we have 3 meetings a year in which most local school board members, or quite a few local school board members attend in person. So we have the winter symposium, we have the annual conference, and then we have the summer leadership conference. And so Carrie has been generous enough to offer a meeting space during those 3 meetings. And so the idea would be that we would conduct our advisory council meetings as part of those 3 statewide school board member meetings. And hopefully by doing that, increase attendance, since a lot of folks will already be at the meeting. So it wouldn't be, one of the things is it wouldn't be wouldn't be asked to miss parts of the conference. We would do this sort of right on the end of the front of the conference. And so that's pretty much, it's a simple recommendation, but it probably has a lot of conversation, and I'd like to hear, and again, remember that the reason that we're doing this is because we have had, and I know part of it's been pandemic, but we have had, even before that, we've had a tough time sometimes getting folks all together in one place. And if we can do it when a particular event is happening that many of you already attend anyway, we thought that might be a good way to improve our attendance at our meetings. So I'm going to stop right there. And so the idea would be, and one of the reasons why we didn't put a really full agenda on today, is that next month in Louisville, the December symposium is held. We would hold another school board advisory council meeting in Louisville as part of that meeting. So, and then we would just start from there and move forward. So I'm gonna stop talking, and I'd just love to really hear your what your thoughts are.
This is Larry Dotson from Oldham County. I do like the idea with it. The only thing we got to be concerned about is sometimes they put the KSBA board meeting in conjunction with the workshops. And if we could have it maybe the afternoon before the workshop starts, we'd be in good shape.
Larry, that's exactly what Carrie and I have discussed. So she's given me a time and a space where nothing else is happening. So it would be in conjunction with the meeting, but it wouldn't require you to miss any part of the meeting. So yes, I wanted to ensure that. I didn't want to just do this and go, oh yeah, they're going to stick us in the corner somewhere while there's a board meeting going on or something else going on. This would be our space and our time that would be before anything else really gets going.
And if they could have it at the same spot for every workshop, we would automatically know we're going to meet at 2:00 the day before the conference starts or whenever. And
that's the intention. That's correct.
Good. I like it.
Julia and then Brandon.
So can you be, I'm sorry, I just didn't quite understand. Would this be the day before the conference, or would it, excuse me, the day of the conference?
So I know that the meetings are different a little bit in the way that they begin. For instance, with the December meeting, we would hold our meeting in the afternoon. I guess it would be of December the 8th. Is that right? And the meeting starts on the morning of the 9th. I think that's right. So we would do it. We basically can do it late afternoon or evening that night before.
My only concern with that is, as a teacher, rather than just having that Friday off, that means Friday, Thursday, and Friday, or at least part of the day on Thursday. Just speaking personally, I would rather it be sometime during the conference, that didn't, maybe after the last session or something like that, so that wouldn't be another additional day.
Okay, that's good. That's a good point. Brandon and then Rochelle.
So yeah, so I just have couple questions. I love the idea of having them at the KSBA meetings. That makes perfect sense. My only question is, and it'd be for Dr. Glass, is as long as he would still be able to attend some of these meetings. So if we have questions and he can give us updates and so forth, because I believe that's one of the best parts of these councils is actually having him there and to be able to interact with him, asking questions and so forth.
Yeah, I'll commit to that, barring any sort of other odd things that draw me away. I plan on prioritizing these meetings as well. I often am asked to say a few words at some of the KSBA meetings as well, so it's convenient for me to.
And I think, Brandon, to your point, and to Julia's point, these are two parts of an important part of the question. So obviously we want to have the meeting when you can attend and I appreciate what you said, Julia, but also to Brandon's point, we want to have the meeting when this guy to my left can be there. So we'll work diligently on that. If we all agree in principle that this is a good idea, if we can figure out the details of it. It seems like that's starting to be a consensus, but I want to hear from everybody that our intention was right, that this was a good way to sort of increase engagement, I guess is the word. So, Rochelle?
I also think it makes a lot of sense to meet during the KSBA conferences. I just would like for you to be aware of, I've been on the board for numerous years and required minimal hours of training. So a lot of times I just go down for the Thursday, Friday sessions, maybe early Saturday. So having it on the beginning side of the conference rather than in the middle of the weekend, I think would be good for those who are maybe in that same situation.
Appreciate it.
And also, I think December is a very busy time for families. And, taking up a full weekend I don't think it's the most ideal time for that kind of stuff, but that's just my opinion.
Well, and we can share that. You can share that, and I can share that with Carrie. I know that the Winter Symposium has happened at this weekend for centuries, it feels like. So we will take that into consideration as well. Does anybody else have any? Diane?
Yes, I don't have a problem with it. Just be aware that some people are on the KSBA Board of Directors as well as this board. So
Right.
That's the only thing, but I like the idea. I think it's very simple and it's very logical. Thank you and Carrie for putting your brains together and figuring this one out.
We've done that before. Carrie and I have got a long history, so we've done that.
Yes, thank you.
Brenda?
Yes, I think it would work good to have it like the evening before, so even if you had to come later in the evening, that you'd have time when you check into your hotel that we could meet that evening, and that would work best, I think, for all of us. Thank you.
All right. Joanne, I forget Joanne's in the room.
I'm here. I think it's a great idea. I really do, because we all need to meet together instead of one here, one there, maybe two here.
Sure.
I like the idea of us all meeting together, and I don't like the idea of the meeting the night before, because like me, I just
You're
drive
gonna pay.
because they won't pay for our hotel. So and there's several, I think, that would be probably in that same.
Okay.
Probably Larry would be in that boat, several of us.
That seems like that's the biggest thing that we'll have to work on is the timing of the meeting. But I guess what I would like to do, if you would all, I'm going to do a little roll call again. If you would all just say yes or no to the idea of aligning our meetings to the KSBA state conferences. We'll vote on that, and then between now and then we'll figure out the details about trying to make sure it works for both Dr. Glass and all of you all, or as many of you all as possible. So, David Webster,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
I don't think Linda's on the call. Brandon,
Yes.
Julia,
Yes.
Yes.
Rochelle,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Carl,
Yes.
and Brenda.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for that conversation. I appreciate everybody's insights and everybody's voice being heard about your concerns, but also your appreciation. I appreciate that as well, that we tried to do something that we hope will benefit all of you all. The other thing that I think is not as big a deal, but as Carrie and I, because Carrie and I work a lot on, filling vacancies on this council. And I know, and Diane just pointed it out, that more than one of you all either is on the KSBA board or has been on the KSBA board. So I just wanted to formalize it and make sure that at any time through time that we had at least 2 members of the KSBA board of directors that were part of this council. So it's more of just formalizing something I think that already is existing, which is I want there to be that connection between this council and the KSBA board of directors so that you can share information from this council and vice versa. So I guess what I'm asking for is someone to make a motion that beginning now, that we ensure that at least 2 members of the School Board Advisory Council are also members of the KSBA Board of Directors. So I'll stop and ask for any discussion on that item before someone makes, if someone wants to make a motion. Diane? You're muted still, Diane.
I know it. This mute stuff, it just drives me crazy. I like that. I like that. That way everybody knows it's like having 2 doctors. That way both doctors know what's going on. You'd be part of it, the highlights of it, because what we do in the directors meeting is Brenda and I usually get together and write what we did, like the minutes of each meeting. And that way the board of directors knows what's going on and what needs to be done or what is specific to our needs. And I like that. I think it would work really well.
Great. Anybody else have any comments? One of the things I do want to ask before we do ask for a motion is how many of you all are on? See, I don't even know that. That's bad that I don't know that. But how many of you all are on the KSBA? So
This is
we know
Larry
Diane-
Dodson. I start in January.
Larry starts in January. And is Brenda, you're on? Okay.
Yes, I'm on the board now.
So Diane, Brenda, and Larry, is that it for right now? Larry will be. Anybody else that's on the board right now? Okay, good. So we've actually met the demands of whatever motion we make. So could I have someone that makes a motion that we make a caveat to the council membership that at least 2 members of the council are board members? Brandon?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
And Brenda seconds it. So here we go again. David Webster,
Yes.
Diane Berry,
Yes.
Brandon Rutherford,
Yes.
Julia Fisher,
Yes.
Michelle Hamilton,
Yes.
Larry Dodson,
Yes.
Lamprey,
Yes.
Carl Whitman,
Yes.
and Brenda Rose.
Yes.
All right. So those were the two primary things that we wanted to try to accomplish today, in addition to Jason being with us, Dr. Glass being with us. Does anybody have additional things they would like to discuss while we're here together? Julia?
The only thing I wanted to add to the Thursday situation, if we met the Thursday before, was if it was in the evening, that would be, at least for me, so much better because I wouldn't have to leave my class. So if it was like, actually in the evening, that would work for me much better if people wanted to do it that night before. I appreciate the consideration.
Sure, thank you. Brandon?
Yes,
Out of order, but go ahead, Brandon.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's all right.
I got a couple questions for Dr. Glass, if he's willing to take a couple of questions real quick.
Sure.
We just opened bids for a new middle school here in Madison County. It came in way over bid, or what we projected, especially what our BG1 was. Is KDE or you or anybody talking to the legislatures about trying to get us more funding for these extremely high building costs that we've got that are just, we've got money, but they're coming in 10, 15, 20 million over what they should be. So is that something that you're maybe working on?
Well, yes, we always advocate for increased funding for education, and then what packages that comes in is up for some debate. We prefer it to be as flexible for school districts as possible. There was an increase in school construction funding made available in the last legislative session. Though there seems to be some mixed conversation in the legislature about reopening the budget for next year. Of course, we're in halfway through the 2-year budget, and some of them, I hear them strongly saying that they're not going to open that for anything. And then I always hear exceptions to that. Well, maybe for this or maybe for that. So this may be one of those items that they make an exception for opening it up, given the cost inflation that schools are experiencing. So that's certainly something I would support. My most direct answer to your question is yes, we would be supportive of that. We will support it, but I don't know what they will do with that, given that it's halfway through the budget.
I got you. One other thing that I think affects everyone is that attendance across the state is down 2 to 3%. Because every time someone thinks they're sick,
I found this on the web.
They stay home because everybody's scared they might have COVID, don't want to send them to school. Are we looking at any ways to adjust our ADA to help boost some of our funding up?
I would be very supportive of that. Representative Tipton introduced a bill last session that would have shifted us to average daily membership instead of average daily attendance. So it's how many students are basically enrolled and serving on a daily basis rather than how many students are actually in attendance. Where I spent most of my career in Colorado, we had a single day count. So it's how many students were enrolled in your district on October 1st. Other states use a couple of times a year. So they'll do one in the fall and one in the spring. And what I can tell you is there's absolutely zero correlation between the way you count students and the outcomes. It's really all over the board.
Right.
So I'm an advocate of doing it in the simplest way possible. There's an additional reason to think about it right now, and it's for what you talked about, that because we've got such uneven attendance with COVID and now RSV and other disruptions to schooling that are going on, we really are facing a potential decline in school funding for next year because of all the absences and issues like that. So I would be very supportive of changing the count structure in the state to really simplify it and make it easier to count and depend on. What I hear as pushback on that, Brandon, is that there are some districts that feel that they benefit from the average daily attendance structure. They don't want that to change in any way. So I think that we'll have to have some conversations with the associations. And so KSBA will be one of those, but also we'll need to get the other associations on board with moving towards some kind of different attendance structure. I would be even supportive of doing something that grandfathers in over time, so that if you have a district that potentially would be penalized financially by shifting to a different structure, then you have a period of years where you stair step them off of that. But over very directly to your question, yes, I am supportive of a simplified and more direct count structure, and I think this is the year to do it.
Yeah, because I think, especially at the very beginning of the school year, even, before we had all the RSV, the flu, and just everything, I think everyone, and I think the kids have figured out that if they just say they don't feel good, they think they might have a throat hurt or something, parents are automatically jumping to COVID to go get them tested. So therefore, they're missing a day just to go get a COVID test.
We encourage people to stay home if they feel ill, and as a way to prevent outbreaks. So there's some positivity in that. I mean, I understand the rationale behind why you would want to attach funding to attendance too, but just given all the disease disruption that we've experienced, I really think it's time for us to look at this differently. Representative Tipton's bill was introduced. It was not heard in committee, so I think that's the vehicle to try and get something done. Of course, Representative Tipton's got some power on the House side, but he'll need some help from I think the association, and especially get something moving in the Senate. And we need some way where those small number of districts who believe that they'd be advantaged somehow in ADA format, that we get them on board too. So I think that's the both the vehicle and the coalition that you have to build.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Question.
Brenda.
My hand was raised to say that I was on the board of directors, and I don't know how to make it go away.
Okay, I fixed that. Rochelle.
Okay.
Excuse me. I don't know how to raise that hand. That's why I've been jumping in. I'm
I'll
sorry.
get you as soon as Rochelle's done, Larry.
Okay.
And I've got Diane, and then I've got you. I've got you on my list.
Okay. This is just something I would like to bring to Dr. Glass's attention real quick. Of course, I'm in Breathitt County where we had the devastating flood. I would just like, not to forget the issues that we're dealing with here of we've lost students who went to other districts because they have nowhere to live. And also, we're worried about our property evaluation, the assessments coming up. We're afraid we're going to lose a lot of money with that due to the flood. And this is something different. I would like something that could help us prepare more for these meetings. I would like to know that we come out of these meetings being very productive and did something for public education. So if there's some way that we could get information on how to prepare for the meeting or topics that's coming up or questions that we might need to ask, or, so that we could be really prepared and be productive.
I'm going to mention something that we'll discuss at that meeting in December at the next meeting before we leave today, that I want you all to think about, because I think it's something that we've been missing on this council that will help with what you just said, Michelle.
And just on the points about the Eastern Kentucky flood impacted districts, we still are meeting with the superintendents of all those impacted districts every other week and getting updates from them. We plan to continue that up through the rest of this year and leading into the next legislative session. I think this issue of property tax stabilization needs to be something that's brought up again. The legislature did not act on that in the special session, but they did leave open the door, the possibility of talking about that again. The Western Kentucky tornado impacted districts experienced this too. So Dawson Springs and Mayfield, notably, but also Hopkins County, experienced some of this also. So I think you'll have both the Western Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky disaster impacted superintendents all raising this issue. and needing some kind of stabilization, because you'll really experience a drop in property taxes that's because of the disaster that needs to be stabilized in some form.
Diane, and then we'll get to you, Larry.
Okay, this is going to be short and sweet. I want to know, or rather, I'm not been happy with the options to teach. I need more explanations on. There's just seems to me that we have a lot of option 6s and emergency certifications in my county, and I want to better understand the options for teaching. That's it.
Yeah, I think at an upcoming meeting, and one of the things, circling back to what Rochelle was talking about, with all of our advisories, we really have tried to empower the members of the advisory to decide the agenda and to tell us what are the things that you want to talk about and advise the department about. So that may be, I don't want to steal David's thunder, but I'm going to.
That's part of it.
Okay, I'm stealing David's thunder. But when he talks about how we'll make that shift, execute that shift with this group, I think that's part of it. So we'll go ahead and add, if we can get someone from the Education Professional Standards Board, Associate Commissioner Byron Darnell and his team to come in and walk you through the now 9 different options that we have for certification in state. We can do that. I can tell you that the overwhelming majority of them come through the traditional preparation path. So that's your 4-year degree teacher. That's about 80% of the teachers in the state are that. About a little less than 20% of the teachers in the state come through option 6. And so the 2 of those together, the traditional path and option 6, which is a master's or a bachelor's degree plus another year, those 2 options account for over 98% of the teachers in the state. So all of the other options are really a very small number, but they're important, these alternative pathways. But just to put things in perspective, that's something that we can cover with you when we have Byron and his team from EPSC present.
I don't think, because I'm on the standards board, I just want teachers, I want other board members to understand what is going on, because it's easy to read it, but unless you understand it, what's going on, you're lost. You feel like, hey, that's not enough information, or hey, how can somebody that's got an ag degree teach English, or that kind of situation. And I just think all board members need to know for sure what the explanations to the options are. That's what I think. Thank you.
We'll have a short presentation on that, and then mostly look forward to hearing from you as representatives of board members across the state. How can we make sure that that information is easily available to you? And what other options do you need, or what options do you need less of?
Larry, and then Julia.
Yes, I've got one question. This year, we had to, with the local effort, had to give back $25 million to the state. And with the effort of trying to retain teachers and give them raises, is there anything that KDE can do about having to return all that kind of money back to the state?
The most direct answer is no, Larry. The SEEK formula is written into statute, so we don't have flexibility on making changes to it from KDE's perspective. We are responsible for administering it, but you need a statutory change to make those kinds of adjustments.
Is there any way the KDE could promote maybe a possibility of statutory change?
Well, I think I need to understand it more. The mechanisms in SEEK really are trying to balance out the differences between property wealthy and property poor districts. That goes back to the Rose case and the CARA reforms from 1990. So I think we would want to look at the implications of what's being suggested, what the positives and negatives of that might be. I've had a chance to work in some capacity in 7 different states, Larry, and one thing I can tell you that's common across those states, and probably every state in the country, is everybody hates their finance formula. It doesn't matter what state you're in. Everybody wishes it was something else. That's not different here. But I do understand the challenge that you're facing.
At the bottom, you really hate it.
Yeah. Yes.
Julia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wondered if you have any further information. I know they haven't made a decision yet, but about the tax credit case at the Supreme Court, do you have any inclination or any inkling of when things might shake out with that?
I don't know what the Supreme Court's timeline is on that. I will ask our lobbyist, Brian Perry, after we get out of this meeting, if he's got any information, and we'll make sure that we update all of you over email just with anything that we're hearing. Somewhat related to that, we're also expecting a lawsuit related to the state's charter school, the new charter school law. There are a number of constitutional questions in that statute that are, I think, ripe for a suit, and they'll end up suing the state board and myself. So we're just standing around waiting to be sued over it.
Michelle.
Thank you. David, I have one more question for you, if I could.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No worries. I hadn't planned to have two, but I wonder when will you be able to get back with us on when we will be meeting at the KSBA, December 10th?
I've already put it on my calendar for tomorrow morning to work on that, so.
Well, that sounds pretty fast. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Michelle.
I meant to bring this up earlier, and I'm sorry. One thing I think we're all suffering from is teacher shortage. It is very concerning in our district. We actually use some of our ESSER funds to pay for the option 6 people to finish their master's degree with an agreement that they would fulfill a contract after that. But what I'm finding is these people they're finding that they don't like education. It is not because of the teaching they have to do or the students, but it's all this extra work, and that's become a burden to them. And so not only to the new teachers, but to the tenured teachers also. I used to teach school, and hearing their complaints, they're going home just overwhelmed, and I would love to see something happen to help them enjoy their profession more, want to stay. And I think that's a big reason why we are losing a lot of teachers as well.
Yeah, I have heard on good authority, and the good authority being my main supervisor, my wife Sarah, who's a teacher. She's told me that the two big reasons are pay and respect. And I think that second element that you're talking about is really respect. And part of respect means giving people the time and tools and support that they need to do the job effectively. So those are we keep seeming to go at this teacher shortage issue with all sorts of creative ideas, but I mean those two concepts keep coming back to me. It's what are you going to do about pay and respect?
Anybody else? Things they want to share? So Dr. Glass did steal my thunder a little bit. As part of that effort to get you all more involved in the agenda producing process, one of the things that we haven't had with this council, as far as I know ever, I haven't been in charge of it since its very first inception, but we have not had a formal chair, vice chair process situation like we have in many of our councils and many other groups that we deal with and that you all deal with, like your local. So I would like us to do that, name a vice chair and chair. And because I threw it on you very quickly today, I didn't feel like it was fair, unless you guys want to. I didn't feel like it was fair for us to ask somebody to do that and having not really had a chance to think about it. So what I would like for you to do, since it's only a month until we're going to meet again, I would like for you all each to consider whether you would be interested in either of those roles and let me know. And then we can also bring any other nominations, and we'll do that at the beginning of our December meeting. And so that we'll have those folks, and then those folks and I can work more closely on making sure that they hear from you what the agenda needs to look like, so that Jody and I can figure out that in a little bit more easily established manner. So Diane.
Okay, my question is, it's not a question, it's more of a comment. You need to take in consideration, I think, in my mind, what person has 2 years, 1 year, and that, because there's no, the longer you can stay a chairman and vice chair, the more stability that you have on your committee. So I'm just saying, maybe you can pass us a list of who is what and what year and all that.
I'll send you all the list that I used to take roll today, and it has everybody's term on it, so we can see that information too. So that sound like a good plan to do that at the beginning of our next meeting? Ask for a vote. Thank you. Okay, Dr. Glass, do you have anything else? Because I think that's the agenda that I had for you today. Again, as I said, it was going to be a shorter meeting. And I'm really excited that we're going to get into a cadence of being together in person and having it connect to some other work that you guys and some other learning that you all do on a regular basis. So it should improve things all around. So
I'll just end by letting you know, I already sent a message out to Brian Perry about that question on the tax credits in the Supreme Court case. So we'll find out what we can about that. And just a final word on, or a reflection on the election season that we came through. And that is, it's my observation that Americans tend to prefer divided government. They tend to not like aggregating all the power in one perspective's hands. They want balanced viewpoints. And so this is just part of we look back over the years, a long arc of parties and houses and the presidency and control of state houses and governorships and Congress tilting back and forth. And so the American electoral system, for all its challenges and flaws, tends to try and correct and moderate itself over time. So that may be part of what we're seeing right now, and who knows what cycle we'll be in now. But if you're feeling elated or dejected today, have no fear, it will pass. We'll get back to it'll be different the next time around.
all right. Thank you all very much for your time today. I thought it was a really good meeting, and I really appreciate everybody being engaged online, and Joanna with us here. We look forward to seeing you at some point during the KSBA Winter Symposium. We'll figure it out and hopefully have a time slot that works for everybody. And I'll get more information to you about that. Like I said, I'm going to work on that. So,
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.